Welcome to the Financial Sense series. I am your host, Judy McCutcheon. I am an experienced financial educator, coach, and the creator of Own Your Badass coaching program. I also created the 30-day Money Mindset Detox program, which aims to help you take control of your finances and have a better relationship with your money. I am passionate about helping women build wealth from the inside out. I have some exciting things on the horizon, one of which is the Money Mindset Detox mini course coming up in January. This mini course is to help you kickstart your 2021 money journey. Join our waitlist to be notified when registration opens. In this 10-part series, we'll be talking about all things personal finance. We will discuss your money personality, your money beliefs, your money values, saving, debt, budgeting, retirement, investment, insurance, and everything in between. Money is such a powerful word that even the mere mention of it can arouse some extreme emotions. It is central to everything we do. It helps us turn our dreams into reality and gives us the freedom to live life on our terms. Yet, the startling reality is that most of us never formally learn about money. Personal finance is not a subject taught in schools or colleges. A recent survey shows that 77% of people are stressed about money. In fact, the American Psychological Association cites money as the number one stressor in people's lives. Today's show is much more than just money, it's about your health and your wealth. Many money programs are all about the figures. But I wanted this series to be a more holistic approach to financial wellness. And today is an exciting show. I am joined by four ladies, and I have to tell you, I really love the international flair that this series has. Since we've started, we've had speakers from across the region and beyond. Our speakers today are from Jamaica, but she lives in Canada. We have one from Belize. We have St. Vincent with some Grenada flavor. And we have the US with some sprinkling of Grenada in there. So let me introduce our guests. We have Miss Margaret Orain, and Margaret is a leadership coach who is dedicated to changing the way we live and work so that we do so with joy. She coaches leaders in realizing the value that joy and happiness at work brings to people and profit. With over 30 years in strategy consulting and general management, Marguerite's commitment is to help leaders and their team joyfully bring strategy to life to achieve their desired result. Welcome, Marguerite.
Thank
We
you.
also have Michelle Shanti Williams. Michelle, Michelle is a yogi, a conscious community leader, philanthropist, self transformation coach, and a sought after international speaker. She is a master yoga and meditation teacher and the founder of Om Shanti Belize. And Om Shanti is a 5-star rated retreat center and school for yoga and wellness, as well as Rhythm of Change Belize, which is a non-profit organization dedicated to sharing evolutionary tools of progressive action, yoga and meditation to communities throughout Belize, and beyond. She is dedicated to guiding individuals and the collective at large on the path of self discovery and purposeful living. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me, Judy. Thank you.
We have Dr. Denise Lewis. Dr. Lewis is a clinical psychologist and assistant professor at St. George's University and has over 30 years of experience in a wide range of counseling services to diverse population, including families, couples, and professionals. The core of her life is her family, and she has a burning passion for families and marriages. She's also passionate about ministry to women and children. Welcome to the Financial Sense series, Dr. Lewis.
Thank you.
And then we have Mr. Nasi Carrington.
Hi.
Anasi is a holistic wellness coach who supports women on their healthy lifestyle journey. She is the founder of Anasi Holistic Health Services, a wellness company that helps individuals detoxify, improve gut health, lose weight, and transition to a plant-based lifestyle. Early in life, Anasi discovered the benefits of regular meditation, yoga, exercise, and healthy eating habits. As her productivity, physical stamina, and mental clarity improved, Anasi felt more empowered to support others in their journey of healing and healthy living. She works with individuals across the globe. Welcome, Anasi.
Hello.
Welcome, ladies, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
The
you, Judy.
idea behind these money conversations, because they're conversations, they're not interviews, they're conversations, is to educate and to get us talking openly about money so that we can start having a better relationship with our finances. Today's discussion, which I'm excited about, is all about the stress associated with money and how best we can cope with that stress. Since the pandemic, money concerns have hit many of us hard. And what makes this even more frightening is that there are so many unknowns about the virus, unknowns about what is going to happen. This virus, I believe, is an equal opportunity virus. It has touched everyone in all walks of lives. Economies have been disrupted, sorry. Many have lost jobs, and many continue to lose their jobs as companies downsize in the face of these uncertain times. So I, I want to get right into it. Money, money, money. Because, money, even in normal circumstances, we're anxious when we don't have any. And then when we have, we worry that we lose the little that we have. So either which way, we're always worried about money. And then as you add that pandemic into the mix, we have a severe toxic financial situation. I want to talk about mental health, the mental health issue first, because the link between poor mental health and financial health is cyclical. When you have poor financial health, you have poor mental health, and around it goes. What do you think is the extent in the increase of mental health issues brought on by the pandemic and the ensuing money challenges? People having lost their jobs, families losing the only breadwinner, and just in general the death of a loved one during this pandemic. What can people do to help themselves relieve some of these mental stress? And I'll start with Dr. Lewis.
When things happen to us in that way, that is so uncertain and unexpected, it really throws us off. And we identify this as trauma, in that people are not aware of what the choices are, what needs to happen, and so they become even more distressed. And so, one of the things that we ask people to do when that happens is to begin to focus. What is it that you do have control over? Because many times we go into that emotional dysregulation and we think about the worst things and we imagine the worst that will happen. And that takes us into a snowballing, even in our heads, and we do lose emotional control also, even that sense of thinking through something rationally and reasonably. And so even that can also begin to make things worse. Physiologically, it begins to affect us as well. And so when we are stressed and we are thinking all fearful thoughts and negatively, it begins to affect our physiological functioning. So our parasympathetic nervous system goes into overdrive, meaning we are anxious and nervous, we are not sleeping, we feel unhappy. That spills out over into our relationship with the people around us, and everybody is unhappy. And so one of the things we ask is to begin to slow down and focus. What is it you do have control over? And beginning to tease that out. And the other is to notice. Because while we're saying, you know, take it easy, don't get overexcited, what you're experiencing is very real, what you're experiencing. And so it's beginning to notice what's happening. One of our psychologists says or warns us, when we are not aware of what's happening in us physiologically and emotionally, then the body keeps the score. Because we get busy, we might avoid, doing certain things. I don't want to talk about the money, I don't want to deal with that, and we avoid, but it registers in your body, and physically you begin to feel unwell. Emotionally, you begin to react to people around you, to your children, and generally not being a happy camper, and the quality of your life can deteriorate. So one of the things we say is to focus on what you have control over, who and what are the resources you have in your community, in your workplace. For some people, they may have lost their jobs, but what else do you have? What other options do you have? And it takes time to begin to slow that down and tease that out to begin to create that shift in your mind. We create a dynamic or a diagram we call, it's a sort of mindfulness response to when things happen over which we seem to have no control, and we call that that mindfulness response. So we have the emotional mind, we have the reasonable mind, the rational mind, and in the middle, what do we do? Which we call that's a wise mind response, the wise place to respond out of all that is happening. So I want to stay here for now and build on that later. But how do we respond in a way that's wise and that's going to serve us when we are feeling this way because what's happening is a reality and we are thrown off by how we think about things, and therefore we're not able to respond in a way that's helpful to us or benefiting the people around us.
Very, very, very interesting response. So I'll go now to Michelle to get her take on how can people really cope, building on what Dr. Lewis just said.
Thank you, Judy. I think fundamentally what we have to really look at and and think about is our relationship with money. And if we if we think about the aspect of the attachment to what we perceive money is, then sorry, my dog is is barking. Then we can go from that point and then work our way through it, because the attachment to money is really, and the attachment to the material aspects to money, what the money will bring, the status of your life and your lifestyle. I think those are the things that really cause us a lot of stress. Now, of course, what we need, as far as money is concerned, are the basics. So we need to know that we have shelter, we have food, we have clothing. And from a yogic perspective, the attachment to money is really what brings us the stress. And so if we learn to sit in silence, to sit in stillness, if we learn to meditate, what can happen as far as a yogic perspective is that answers arise, wisdom arises. Once we take away the attachment to what we see as money, and we sit, we learn to meditate, we can literally see things and things will come to us that will help us to build a happier life without the attachment to the material things. Now, if in this time you talk about people losing their jobs, but there's also the aspect of a lot of people after losing their jobs, once they've sat, the answers come that they start their own business, and there are people that are becoming very resourceful in starting their own business and becoming self-employed. So it's a matter of how much we perceive, how much control we give over that aspect of the attachment to money. And also once we kind of adapt and bring ourselves into that awareness of really what is real, and the air is free, relationships with people that are important to us is always there, and we have support that's always there. It's also a matter of becoming more and more adaptable to the changes that are occurring in our environment, in our work situation. There's a lot of stresses that people are finding, even just moving to more of a virtual platform, because it becomes overwhelming. So it's really about just sitting and learning to, instead of becoming more reactive on, like Dr. had said, the negative possibilities, sitting in silence, learning to meditate, learning to breathe, and allow things to come to you. And there's also the aspect of spirituality, connecting to the divine. That is also a very important, especially in these times. But letting go of that attachment to what we think money can do for us, and setting a foundation of allowing opportunities to arise instead of focusing on what is happening and what we're perceiving as happening that is negative, and allowing opportunities for new change, for adapting to maybe another, a different life, and finding happiness in the most basic fundamental things. If we rely on money as giving us our happiness, we're constantly in that lack mentality. We might have all the money in the world and still needing more, wanting more, focusing so much more on that material thing, instead of actually appreciating every moment, becoming aware in every moment, being mindful in every moment of the beauty and the opportunities that are there for us. So I speak from a yogic perspective, and from the tradition that I'm born out of. But it's really one of the things that COVID has really done is really allowed us to appreciate what is really real and what is most important, and having deep trust, knowing that there are opportunities for survival and to thrive, just might not necessarily be in the way that we did before.
So I'm going to put Margaret in here because Margaret is the woman of joy. So how can people be joyful in all that's happening?
So Judy and lovely ladies on the panel and our wonderful participants, behind every thought of stress, every feeling, physiological, emotional, mental, is fear. And so the real question is, when we're feeling stress, what is it that we're fearful of? And typically we're fearing that something is changing, we're going to lose something, or something bad is going to happen. And so if we're in that place, joy is absolutely impossible unless we make that decision to do so. So when we're in a place of fear, it is good to sit, as Michelle just said, get quiet, breathe, focus on the breath, and just get still and really look at what comes up. What are you fearful of? What is it that's behind the stress that is causing you to feel angst and anxious and so on? Typically what happens is that when you take stock of your fears, you realize that, you know what, none of these things are really real. They happened in the past, or there's some belief system that you're brought forward with you. And from that place, you're also able to look at what is working in your life. Money is just a symbol for what we consider wealth. And the truth of the matter is that when we take stock, we are a lot wealthier than we think we are. I have, like all of us, been through tough times. And I remember in one of the hardest times that I went through, I remember saying to myself, God won't make me starve. God won't make me starve, even though I had no money. And sure enough, God has never made me starve. So there's the issue there of really taking stock when you're in this place of quiet, looking at what you're fearing. Am I fearing I'm going to lose the house? Am I fearing that I'm going to lose my job? Am I fearing that I won't be able to buy food? Once we get clear on that, then we can open to the possibilities that the job is not the only place that will provide our sustenance. You know, there are relatives, there are friends, there are, in your case, there are mango trees, there are all sorts of places from which an abundance of wealth comes from. And when we start getting ourselves in that frame of being, then it releases the joy within you, which is not dependent on anything. My favorite definition for joy is irrational happiness. And that just says everything to me. It has nothing to do with anything going on in your life. It is just, I'm joyful today. Why? Because I'm joyful today. So Judy, one of the things though that some people are not quite ready to get to joy. And so what I say to people like that, if you're not ready for joy, if joy is too much of a step for you, just try getting calm. Just get calm. Just sit, get quiet, take stock, count your blessings. You know, if you've ever done this of just sitting down and counting your blessings, you can never finish, you know. You can never, ever finish counting your blessings. Isn't that an amazing thought? Isn't that just like, wow, I can never count all my blessings. I'm actually quite wealthy.
But
And
you
that,
see,
mm-hmm.
the thing is that a lot of us don't see things outside of money as being wealthy. So looking at it from a real simple perspective, because I believe it's the simple things that gives us the happiness. And I see, what are your thoughts?
So I would like to piggyback on what Marguerite said, and she said something that was really poignant in that community, family, friends. Oftentimes when we're down and out and we sit in the sadness, in the hopelessness, in the fear, we forget our true wealth is oftentimes our network, right? And our network in this instance means community, means family. So when you're down and out, when you're feeling like the world is caving in, you don't know where you're going to get money from. Um, our ego or our pride can be a hindrance sometimes to outreach, to reaching out to our friends, our family, and sharing our situation, letting them know what's going on, because often they're the ones that will be more apt to support and to help you. In addition to friends and family, when dealing with mental health concerns, rather than think that this is only happening to you, you're alone in this, by including community, by sharing your concerns, your worries, your sense of depression or anxiety with your friends and family, they then could possibly let you know that they're experiencing similar feelings of depression, of anxiety, they're overeating, they are crying, they're worried. And then you two or three can formulate a plan. And that could be, Dr. Lewis had mentioned earlier, teletherapy. Right now, in the era of social distancing, you may not be able to go out and connect with a therapist in person, but there are organizations and programs that you can actually reach out to on the internet that can align you with a skilled practitioner that would be able to provide you support during the pandemic, during your job loss, when you're feeling hopeless, alone, and isolated and not really knowing what to do. So for me, is knowing that you're not alone. I think that's really important for people, especially now when we are socially isolated or we may feel alone, that we're not. As Michelle said, you are always supported. You're supported by Spirit, God, the Creator, whatever it is that you're believing in is always there to support you and to provide you with guidance. All you need to do is tap into that, whether it be through prayer, through meditation, through journaling, because oftentimes when we are still silent and meditative, the answers do come. Oftentimes when we connect to families and friends, they share ideas that we may not in our aloneness, conceive of, but then they're like, oh, there's a food pantry down there, Miss so-and-so, she cooks on Sunday and she's been really nice and she gives, food to people in the community. Girl, you really should go and speak to Miss, whoever, and she'll hook you up. So, excuse me, not being afraid to share your story, not being afraid to let people know what you're going into, what you're going through, I think is really crucial to finding solutions to your situation. And also, too, relying on your spiritual practices and beliefs is a way to help you cope.
That is so true. And while I was doing my research for this episode, I couldn't find any Caribbean statistics, but one of the things that's really dear to me is domestic violence. And I know that there's been an increase as a result of this pandemic. As a matter of fact, the UN reports that cases could have increased by as much as 20% worldwide. Now, I want us to just, a little bit, just give women who are in a situation like this some coping strategies. And I know that people will say, because I used to be one of those people who would say, well, if you're in it, just come out. But now I know it is easier said than done because the circumstances are not black and white, they're not clear cut. So how can we help them cope if they can't come out? How can we help them to really just, I don't know, find some way of knowing that I can get through, this. It might be a little bit extra, but I can really get through this situation. Dr. Lewis?
I've been thinking, even as my fellow panelists were talking, and one of the things that was reiterated is that belief and that understanding that we are not alone when we are going through struggles and difficulties. And one of the things that keeps our women in that sort of bondage and condition is one, the fear that we might be alone, and the shame. And what we hear in the society, and why are you letting this happen to you? Something must be wrong with you. I don't know. Years ago, there was a Calypsonian. I think I don't quite remember his name, but I remember the refrain. Dog runs away, cat runs away, woman, you could run away too. Put some wheels on your heels and just get out of there. But it's not that easy because lots of times, domestic violence and abuse is also insidious. It comes through generations, the way we see people around us, our own families, deal with situations. And so that sort of response or fear that is sometimes paralyzing can keep people in that trap. Again, the whole idea of fear, I've known people who also try to get out and it's not handled properly and they feel like they're even in more danger. And so one of the things we try to ask people to do is to reach out, and it may be somebody at your workplace or closest to you that you can trust to begin to say, this is happening. The other thing is a lot of times women don't want to take it to a police because they're afraid of the repercussions. That may be down the road, but it's also shown that most times when the issue is not dealt, legally or taken in that direction, it does not stop. It may stop with you because you get away, but that continues. So the question is, who can you reach out to, for one? Two, beginning to ask yourself, this is happening to me? How is it impacting my life? The people around me, what do I want for myself? Because lots of times when that happens, it eats away at the woman's self-confidence, self-esteem, and they don't have that feeling of empowerment. And so that's also another place that it helps them to begin to shift that empowerment to beginning to see themselves in a different light, being treated better by having a conversation with someone. Sometimes it begins with your therapist or maybe your spiritual leader or somebody who you can talk to and begin to help you to revisit, talk about who you are, where you got started, how this happened, what were the goals and dreams for your life that you may have lost. Because when people go into these relationships, they go in with anticipation and expectations of something better that will further their goals and dreams and their happiness. And then it becomes a nightmare. And so reaching out by asking for help, whether it is the person's closest to you, your spiritual leader, pastor, priest, or a therapist, or services that the government may have, because in that sense, there is a community involvement and the reaching out to other people, knowing that you're not alone, to help you to begin to be empowered to make first steps, baby steps into that place of your freedom. So asking for help and realizing you're not alone and beginning to trust somebody. There must be somebody you can trust, because that's a key thing. After you've been mistreated by somebody you thought should love you and that you trust, that breaks trust, and that sometimes, is passed on to other people. But sometimes we have to stop and be able to trust somebody to say, I can start here, even if it's just a baby step.
And sometimes that is how we have things going on for generation and generation, because we just pass it down and our kids look how we handle situation and they do the same. But Margaret, as a leadership coach, I'm sure that this would affect people's behaviors on the job.
Absolutely.
How can we help women who are in leadership position? Because one thing I know is that domestic violence doesn't affect only one sector of society. It's across the board. So how can we help women who are in this position cope, like from a job standpoint?
Yeah, Judy, it absolutely turns up at work, unfortunately. And I think as leaders, when we're in the workplace, we have to become attuned and very aware of what's happening with our team members. Are we really noticing their emotions, noticing changes in their behavior, and reaching out to offer help and support? Many women are not able to leave because of financial issues. And so that is one of the areas that, the workplace can help, because the workplace is about money, whether it is about salary advances or loans or the community at work. So there is a lot that if you're in a position of leadership at work, that you can do to help others. That being said, make sure you yourself are helping yourself, because as you rightly said, there are people at all levels of society who are undergoing some very traumatic situations and are covering them up very, very, very well, they think. So that requires some level of introspection about who you are turning up as at work and what's going on in your own life. There's something I wanted to say though about this issue of domestic violence and the feeling of being stuck, that you have no option. I think the worst thing in life is to feel you have no choice. Once you know that you have a choice, that in and of itself is freedom. And my heart sinks every time I hear someone says, well, I had to because I had no choice. Somehow there's always a choice. And knowing there's a choice is liberating. You may not be able to make the choice right now, but you know that there's a choice. And Denise said something very important, which is what are the small steps that you can take? And since this is about, we're talking about financial stress. For example, a woman who is in an abusive situation at home, working or not, but somehow, small steps, even small steps like, a little jar that you put in coins every day. It might sound so trite, but that in and of itself gives a measure of control that you are actually taking steps to get yourself out of the situation. The jar of money alone may never add up to, the lawyer's fees or the rent for your own home, but it says something to you that yes, I have a choice and I am doing something. It gets rid of that, helps you to deal with that feeling of helplessness. Yes, John Lewis, baby steps, they are so important for feeling I have a choice. There's something I can do and I'm doing it.
Which brings me to something that I have experienced and I want to just talk about it. Between 2010 and 2012, I suffered a serious bout of depression. So I'd moved from Belize to Grenada, and it was kind of like, around the time of the financial crisis, and I was unemployed. I wasn't dealing very well with that situation at all because I've always worked for my own money. I've never really had to ask anybody for anything. So being unemployed really sent me a little bit off the deep end. And I suffered in silence because, you don't want people to, it's that thing that you feel like you don't want people to know what your situation is. So you don't really talk about it. But I'll tell you, it was one of the darkest moments of my life. Really, it was. And I discovered, yoga, and then I discovered meditation. And I'll tell you something, those two things have been my secret weapon for coping because it allows me to sit in silence when I feel overwhelmed and just really get calm and focus and get clarity. So do you think that we have an unnatural attachment to money? Because I think that I was defined by my job. I think that the money that I made defined who I was. So, so when we lose that money, when we lose that money source, we are unable to cope because we self-identify. That is who we are. When you ask somebody who they are, they tell you about their job. How do you think, I mean, like, Michelle, from a spirituality standpoint, I mean, do you think that we just get so unnaturally attached to things that we can't cope when those things are no longer there because we have no real identity?
Yeah, well, the actual thing is that I think, um, over the generations, the importance on your financial status and how money, um, visually, how money can show through you. What you wear, the type of clothes that you wear, the shoes that you wear, the car that you drive. And but like I'd said before, and then that becomes your identity instead of really knowing who you truly are and knowing your true nature, that of being, um, a spiritual being that has really abundance always around them. But you get tied down to that identity of everything that you think you've built, and then you become concentrated on getting more and more. And that's why I'd spoken before of this lack mentality, that state of lack, because even though we might have an abundance of financial wealth, there's always that fear of losing it. And with fearing of losing it, losing your identity, losing your status, losing your self-worth, there's this unfortunate attachment to finance and self-worth, accomplishments through finance, through material things, and self-worth. There's a total disconnect, really, when you think about it. And so when I talk about lack mentality, you're always being stressed. You're actually stressed when you have a lot of finances, because there's always that pressure that we have on ourselves to do more, to achieve more, to have the appearance of being happiness. And then you're walking around kind of faking your happiness, because you feel, because you've arrived in a sort of financial category, that you should automatically be happy. And that's when things like alcoholism come into play, drug abuse, things like lashing out violently, because there's this knowing that those things don't make you happy. And so it's really connecting to what is really real. And what is really real is the abundance in every single thing, the most basic things, and finding that happiness within, without necessarily any materialism. Now, in this day and age, money is an exchange. So basically, you do work, you get an exchange. So it's basically an exchange system. But like I was telling you some time back, like even that, through COVID, even that is becoming, and if you look to like 2040, even that monetary exchange, and even now virtually everything is being done online, those will become less and less. So it is thought of that the exchange system will become more on, truly on more of what you're worth and your knowledge and your capabilities, in the sense that it'll become more of a barter system. And so it's in a sense, COVID really has kind of like spearheaded us to become more adaptable to what is coming. Everybody experienced COVID, the rich, the poor, the in-between. It didn't save anyone. So in that case, money doesn't really help you in that respect. And also, there's that element of change. People like to know that they're in control. They're in control of different things. And what COVID has done too, it's really has brought to light that we're actually not in control. Even if we think we are, we're not. And something like COVID could have happened 2 years ago. So it's a matter of finding joy, finding happiness in nature, with the people around us, developing really good relationships that are born out of sincerity and compassion and gratitude. And gratitude, and when we talk about the word gratitude and abundance doesn't necessarily, in fact, it doesn't mean material wealth. It means finding that appreciation and that gratitude and that love, just opening your eyes and saying, I can breathe, the breath, breathe. So I think, and then once you've established that, the connection to really what's real, things in the flow of life, things happen. You might acquire some material wealth, but it doesn't matter if you lose it as well. It's just life is that flow. It comes, it goes, and it's a matter of navigating through the coming and the going with elegance and with grace, instead of always, like I said before, not necessarily even enjoying when financial success comes your way, because you're always thinking, I have it now, I could lose it. And that's that lack mentality that I spoke of, that is really causing a lot of pain, a lot of anguish, a lot of stress, and people don't even necessarily know it's stress. because it's been passed on it through generations. But it's really just simply connecting, enjoying the simpler things in life, getting on with life, and doing the things that you need to do, but not connecting so much to that financial, what we consider financial wealth, because that can come and go. But what is real is the love that we have for life, and that connection to whatever you might want to call it, God, spirit. And once you have that connection, there's this inner knowing. There's this inner knowing that knows no matter what challenges you experience, that it's a challenge to help us grow, to help us evolve, to test our endurance, to test our ability to move past these challenges. But we do so in grace, because we know you can't go through this life wrong. It's not going to happen. It might not happen the way you think you want it to happen, but everything that happens, whether it's challenges, good or bad, that we perceive, because there's really no good or bad. It's just life. It just is. And once we can navigate with grace and just take things and see even the challenges as that opportunity to learn, to grow, to progress, to evolve, then life becomes this wonderful play that we're taking part in.
But I am at a point now where I say that my greatest joy is to be always in a state of grace. However, it takes a while to get to this point. So people who are not at this point might be saying, well, that's easy for you to say. I mean, they might think, well, this is kind of like, what is that? Some kind of foo-foo thing. How do you get to this level of awareness, Michelle?
Well, it comes to a point where you just get sick and tired of the ever repeating known. And I think as long as you are seeking um, something that is not so much based on the superficiality of money, you search out, and the people that are to support you will come. It is anchoring yourself, this first of all, deciding that you're kind of sick of the way your life is going. You've got to get to that point, and then you decide how you kind of say, okay, well, I need to improve, and you seek out the paths in which will get you there. um, and it's also good to remember that every experience has a benefit. Every experience will take you, we have the choice to take an experience and make it progressive or make it regressive. So it's really a matter of just deciding. It is, you've been on this path, it's not working for you, let me seek out. And like some of the other panelists had said, there's different ways of getting there. You can reach out to friends and family, you can reach out to spiritual leaders, but also you could reach out to a meditation coach, or just maybe even just a friend that you can talk to and get some clarity on the next step. But within you, there will become a point where you've gone that path too often and it hasn't really done anything for you. And so it's that at that lowest point that you decide time to move forward. And it's just that decision that you make,
Sometimes it's almost as if we always have to hit rock bottom before we could get back up. And so, which brings me to another point about stress. So, stress from a general standpoint, we know is harmful. But when we add financial stress on top of that, we get to like toxic levels of stress, and that pushes us to engage in certain unhealthy behaviors. And one of those unhealthy things is overeating, eating the wrong type of food, and just kind of going down that rabbit hole of unhealthy. And before you know it, you're 200 pounds, you're 250 pounds, you're 300 pounds. My daughter used to look at this show, 600 pound, my 600-pound life. I mean, how do you mitigate? How do you avoid going down that rabbit hole, and eating the wrong types of food, especially during such a stressful time now? And this question, I'm addressing this to Anasi, because Anasi is she's my food coach, and she has really helped me to come to a really good point with my eating.
So been there, I've done that. Back in my journey, when I started my entrepreneurial path and I left my secure, good paying 9 to 5, I remember being stressed out, being overwhelmed, being worried, and eating uh, food. They don't call it comfort food for nothing, right? Um, and my go-tos were like Stacy's chips, um, kettle potato chips. They're like the crunchy kind. And it became a really horrible cycle in that I gained weight. I wasn't feeling as confident. And I wasn't feeling myself. So I went to food to give me that instant, lift, those neuroreceptors, get them sparkling and feeling good. And then I'd pack on some more pounds. So learning from that experience and knowing much better now, I know that for me in my practice, I'm not a believer necessarily of, discipline. I believe in not having foods in your pantry, in your periphery that are detrimental to your health. So what I did was I cleaned out my pantry. Instead of chips, I got, a variety of fruits and, I made my veggie platter with like nice crispy things that I can just like grab and go and eat when I'm feeling like I'm triggered or I'm feeling a little nervous. I'll go eat some celery or some, I love sweet peppers. So those are some of the techniques I really share with my clients, is having foods accessible for you to munch on rather than fat, high carb, sugary snacks. That way, we're not saying that, our natural instinct is to go and grab something, but what you grab is really what's important. And to have food available that are healthy, nutrient dense foods will make you feel better in your body. You won't gain weight. Your digestive system will work best. So you'll feel more energized, you'll sleep better, you'll look better, and you'll have improved clarity of mind, which is really important when we are in a stressful situation, when we are building businesses, when we are dealing with pandemics like COVID. Clarity of mind, I think we all touched on that on the panel, that it's very hard to be mindful and to meditate and to be grounded and to connect to spirit when you're on a really high sugar diet and you're constantly triggered and your mind is constantly racing. So food is not just something that we eat, it's fuel for the body. And when we give our body foods that are not supportive of our health, then it impacts the way we look. Yes, aesthetically, it impacts how we think. It impacts our ability to be still and to meditate and to pray and just to relax. So food for me is just a very crucial part of any lifestyle that is that you want to be functional, whether it is, we'll say like your healthy lifestyle journey, but just a lifestyle in general, because you are, I know we always hear it, but it's so true. You are what you eat. So if your diet is not a healthy one, then more than likely your body won't be healthy. You will eventually develop a chronic illness that you will then have to pay for. And that was one thing I think I was really stressed out about. And once I left my 9 to 5 and I was not insured, medically insured, it was like, wait a minute now, if I am overweight and I develop like diabetes, God forbid, or something, then I'm going to be going to the doctor much more often, and that's going to be out of pocket. Do I really want that? No, I did not. So those are some things that we really have to think about when we are like, during COVID. I think Michelle had mentioned it's an amazing time. People get more creative and they start thinking about opportunities to really monetize like skills that they have, and they may not start a small business. But in doing so, then and you're not having insurance, or you're not having your 9 to 5 to fall back on, your health is really needs to be a strong foundation, because if you're not healthy in any part of the world, a chronic illness can bankrupt you. Doctor bills are very high. The stress of getting a diagnosis is something that most people just do not want to have to deal with. So when we look at it from that point of view, I think people can really see how important it is to have a healthy diet. And by that, by no means I mean to become vegetarian or vegan like myself. I mean incorporating foods into your diet that support your health more so than those that do not. And that looks different to many people. Some people are flexitarian, where they eat, 1 month or a week, they might just go all plant-based. And then they may eat meats. And when you eat meats, as good choice cut meats as possible, because meats that are not organic, that have a lot of pesticides, hormones, are really damaging to our system. So being mindful and educating ourselves on the type of meats that we have available to us and making the best choices. So that's one way of doing it. If you're really trying to cut cost as far as food, then shop seasonal. What's in season and is plentiful, those would be the foods or the vegetables, produce, fruits that will be less costly. When you shop out of season and your country, wherever you are, has to import foods, there's an increased price point on that food that you will incur when purchasing. So if you're really trying to be, budgetary minded and eating healthy, but staying within a budget, it's best to eat seasonal. When you're looking to eat meats, it's best to eat local, fresh, farm-raised meat, and not meat that has been hormone pumped and there's pesticides and a whole bunch of stuff, because that just interferes with your system and you don't really want that. So those are just a few tips that I can think of off the bat that would really support someone looking to eat healthy and to still stay within their budget. Is seasonal. Also, to buy in large quantities when you can. If you're in the US, there's like a Costco or a BJ's. When you buy bulk items, you tend to incur less money than if you were to buy single. And also, lastly, generic, the store brand, not the fancy schmancy brand or not what's trending right now, but store brand products. It's the same thing, just with less bells and whistles, and they tend to be less costly than the trendy items. And by trendy, I mean, I can only think about like for the US, like, brand names that, just come out and they're like hot and, popping, and everyone like wants to try it. And then you have, your Korean grocer brand. Go for the Korean grocer brand, save money, and leave that for IG.
But in our situation in the Caribbean, just want to jump in here. Um, we don't have Costco's. We don't have in some of our islands. We have um, I forget the name, but we do have in some of the islands, like the bigger islands, Trinidad and so on, you would have those bulk buys. But for us in the smaller islands that don't have anything, I mean, going to the market, allows you to eat better for less. Period. You know, it so you can go with, I don't know, $40 can get you some really good. You have kalaloo, you have pak choy, you sweet potato, all of those things, and you can really eat healthy for less. So I have one last question, maybe two, as we're wrapping up, but I want everybody to weigh in on this question because it is about money and relationships. And I know that in the pandemic, there have been some relationships that would have suffered because money played a very big part in that. And, you know, this surveys indicate, and more than one surveys indicate that money is the number one source of stress in relationships. And when I talk about relationships, I talk about all interpersonal relationships, right? All types. So, how do you think that people's interpersonal relationships have been affected, and how can they mitigate the risk to those relationships? And I'm going to start again with Dr. Lewis.
Okay, I was reflecting on the role money plays and piggybacking a little bit on what Michelle was talking about our attachment to money, what we thought or what we imbibed as we're growing up with our families, what money means, what it means to us. For some people, is that sense of entitlement. I have this money. I can do this. It gets me what I need. It gives me the image that I need. At the same time, when we are relating to other people, and they may have their own perceptions about money, and so sometimes even in marital relationships or we say personal relationships, we hear my money and your money, and at this time we are forced to take a look and to notice how we are being affected by what's happening right now and what's important to us, because a lot of times right now we are, when we are locked in, we don't get dressed and go to work. For those of us who are working from home, all the fancy things that the money would buy are no longer as important. And so one of the things I'd like to say is for people to begin to stop and take a look and to begin to make a shift in terms of how they view money. What is the purpose of this money? How it impacts their lives? What matters to them? Because a lot of times the things we really do need is not really in the money, but from each other. And so even at this point in time, when with the stress and feeling like we are lacking financially, and so there is this sense of insecurity, is for people to begin to talk to each other, hear from each other, what matters, what is important to them. Maybe sometimes I listen, I think it's not so much about the money, but something else that's going on, a need in that person's life, emotional, like we were saying in the conversations, connections, feeling that we are of value and of worth in each other's lives at this point in time, especially when we're saying we are isolated, there's social distancing, and we can't do all the things we used to do. But is learning that one of our most important needs is for connection and healthy attachments, and not so much the things and the material things. So I would like to think that even at this time, beginning to rework, and begin to create that shift or paradigm in terms of how we think about money and why we need it, and to listen to each other, slow it down so that we can listen and be with each other, especially at this time, and not feel like we are locked in and I'm stuck here with this person or this situation. But looking at, what has this adversity brought for us apart from we don't have all the money we need, but again, the resources. Who else? Who are the people in my life? What they bring to my life? The gratitude, being able to reflect on that. And when we're able to slow it down and stop from trying to run to make the money, because the more you run and you end up tired and still feeling emotionally bankrupt. So I think this is a good time to begin to create that paradigm shift and revisit what matters to our core at the end of the day. If it's our relationships, our connections, and we're able to do that when we say stop and notice. It's the meditation, it's the calming, the listening. Be still and know I am God, who is the creator of all the resources and all the energies. And we talk about the whole principle of abundance. The principles of abundance, they're created by God. He didn't intend to leave us halfway and starve and our needs not met. But it's to begin to stop again, like I say, slow it down and reflect and refocus to get back to that center and core of what matters.
Definitely, definitely. So, Margaret, what is your perspective on on how this pandemic, and not necessarily so much the money part of it, but people being home, and I was listening to a radio program, and this girl was saying, she being at home with her husband made her realize, I really don't like this man. I really don't. Because usually you're out whole day and you come home and you have just a little bit of time. What is your perspective?
Well, it's said that COVID didn't cause any problems. It just surfaced and amplified the problems that were already there. And I honestly believe that, not just at the interpersonal relationship level, but even at the societal level. It surfaced issues around inequity, around the wealth gap between rich and poor, about how people are treated. And it's also just serviced and amplified some fundamental problems that we have in how we work, for example. What the workplace was like, how people are paid or not paid. All those problems were there. And all COVID has done is just to lay everything bare. So I think it is an absolutely amazing opportunity to look at these things, to accept that there is no normal, that the normal that we left behind is left behind. It wasn't so good. So we need to just leave that behind and stop talking about going back to normal, and instead start to think about what do we really want to create in terms of the new, I don't want to say a new normal, because that implies some kind of steady state that I don't think exists. We are going to keep on changing. Things are going to keep changing. But to bring a level of consciousness to the future, of looking and saying, okay, what do I want this relationship with this person I'm living with to be? What do I want the relationship with myself to be? How does money factor into that relationship? Money is just energy. Money indicates our values. What we spend money on is what it is indicating what is important to us. Are we taking a deep look at that and really becoming conscious about what's the workplace? We spend so much time at work. I have to go back to work because we spend so much time at work, and yet, and we say that we go there because of the money, yet it's one of the most unhappy places in the entire world. And indeed, the places where they're actually earning more money are often even unhappier than those at the lower level. It's just all messed up. So I think this is presenting us this amazing opportunity to bring some consciousness, some awareness, and sit and just think, okay, what is it that I really, really want? What's really important? And then what choices am I going to make around that? And to come full circle, when you get to that place, you'll be in a place of joy.
Definitely. Michelle, can I get your perspective and then Anasi as we wrap up?
Yes. You know, it's interesting because, some of the panelists have actually also pointed out that COVID has actually brought up a lot of unfinished business that we have within us, things that we've kind of turned a blind eye to because we've been on this rat race of making money, so we haven't really been able to sit with it. But within a relationship, what I would say is the utmost important thing is that an individual is comfortable with themselves and with being alone with themselves. If they're in a relationship just to say that they're not alone, or to have some sort of codependency, or to just even think that somebody else is going to fulfill whatever they may need, um, it really doesn't work. So what COVID has done, I think, also is that it's brought to light sometimes in the situations that you've pointed out, where, for example, your friend said, you know, she didn't particularly like the person that she's been with all this time. But sometimes we create a dream person, and we kind of wait for that person that we've chosen to be our mate to kind of grow into this person that we want them to be. And when life is happening as it was before, we kind of just we're waiting for this to happen. And then what COVID has done is that it kind of, you know, we've literally been isolated, and things come up and things become very real and very obvious. And so I think with relationships, it's one of the things that we have to thank COVID for. It's to brought up light the things that we've been ignoring, and also to really decide that it is okay to be alone. It is okay to be alone, and it's also okay not to be alone. But if there is a decision that they part, that it doesn't, people don't have to part in a hostile, angry way. They can come to the decision that, you know, each person has fulfilled something in each other's life, and now there's a time to part, and it's okay, and we can still have love for that person, and we can still have respect for that person. But I think the key is here is to actually allow this pandemic to bring about the importance of our own self-worth, not being reliant on anybody else to fulfill that for us. And that if that person isn't necessarily doing that anymore, that it's okay to say, I think I'd like to step away, and I think I'd like to maybe go on a different path. And two people that have incredible respect for each other can do that in a very encouraging way, and can still remain very close, and can actually appreciate the honesty that comes from a decision like that. So I think what I want to say most of all is that it's okay to be alone. And if that's what will happen within a relationship where maybe it's not working for you, and you can accept that, and you guys can go yourself a separate path, that it's fine, that is okay. And that if you choose to stay together, that there is that mutual respect. But even within that, the context of a couple, that we as individuals have to be totally secure with ourselves, and have to work towards that confidence and that self-worth that'll help us to see things as they really are. Because I think it's when we lack in this self-confidence that we kind of build up a picture of something, or of a relationship and of a person, and that they're really not fulfilling or meeting any of the expectations, because our self-worth is low. we kind of settle. So I think it's basically that, garnering that self-worth, and if necessary, not being afraid to part. I think that there is a huge taboo about around that issue, when people can really come into each other's lives for a purpose and then leave and stay connected, but not necessarily as one unit, and that's also fine. So being comfortable with that as well.
Certainly. Anasi?
Hi. So I think for couples, for relationships, COVID also provided an opportunity for a reset. COVID allowed people to spend more time together than they ever had before, especially during lockdown, and to assess and see aspects of their relationship that atrophied, that, died, whether it was the romance, whether it was the communication, whether they were not really keeping tabs financially on household and individual spending. COVID then brought light to those areas and gave individuals, couples, roommates, partners opportunities to do a reset, to sit back and reevaluate, what are we doing? Why are we here? um, do we want to salvage this relationship? Has COVID really brought to light some ugly sores that we are now going to invest time in healing? So there may be instances where there is separation, yes, but there's also instances where COVID was the blessing that helped people to heal aspects of their relationship that were left unattended through being overly busy with life outside of the home or outside of the relationship, that they now can shine a light and focus on healing and building better, and then being able to move on still in union. So I think that COVID also provided couples, friends, siblings, partners that opportunity as well.
Yes, certainly, certainly. And um, as we move into 2021 in this current climate, because I can tell you that the pandemic, even though we have a vaccine, it's the rotation is going to be slow. So as we move in, because we're going into 2021 in the same climate. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who are saying, let's kick 2020 out. But 2020 has taught us so much. It has shown us that we're resilient, that we're strong. It has shown us that we have a voice. It has shown us that we're kind. It has shown us so many things. So I want us to take the lessons that 2020 has taught us. I want us to also put down the things that don't serve us. Leave those things behind as we go into 2021. And what I really want to ask us to do is to check in with each other. This situation has affected everybody. This pandemic was an equal opportunity pandemic. It affected everybody. And to simply just check in and ask, are you okay? How can I help? Could make the world of difference to that person jumping over a cliff or doing something equally destructive. So let us not forget that kindness and that togetherness that 2020 has taught us, that it has brought us to that point. So let us remember to check in with each other. Ladies, I thank you so much. I really thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I really enjoyed this conversation. It's looking at finance from a different view, but I think it's a view that we need to look at it from, because we need to look at finance from a holistic standpoint. It's not just about what's in your bank account, but I think it's about everything that encapsulates finance. So I really want to thank you very much. And to our viewers, don't forget to join me in January for the Money Mindset Detox course, and click on the link to get on the wait list so that you know when registration opens, because really money is energy. Money is not that piece of paper or that coin. What it is energy. And if you don't have the right mindset, then money is always going to be an illusion. You really have to start from the inside out as far as money is concerned. I am your host, Judy McCutcheon. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to encourage you to please connect with these awesome ladies. Um, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I don't know if anybody has Snapchat and TikTok and all that kind of stuff, but please connect with them. You know, um, Michelle, Michelle does. She has a virtual yoga um, class that she does globally. Margaret is a leadership coach. Dr. Lewis is a clinical psychologist, and Anasi is a holistic coach. I just tell everybody that she is my food coach. She has really helped me to manage my eating. So now everybody says I want to look like Judy. It's a lot of hard work, but it has been the help. And Margaret, I don't know if I said it earlier, but Margaret has been my coach for 6 months. Margaret has been my life coach. She has brought me from a caterpillar to a butterfly. So please connect with these ladies. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank
Thank
Take
you.
you.
care.
And
Bye
all
bye.
2021. It'll be
Yes,
awesome.
Bye bye.
all the
Happy
best.
New
This is
Year.
Happy New Year. It's the last day of the year. I wish you nothing but love, joy, peace, prosperity, abundance, and all good things. Every good thing that you wish for yourself, I hope that you achieve and accomplish in 2021. And the
Likewise.
same to our viewers. I really wish you the best.
Bye
And
bye.
I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Next week, we'll be discussing your personal financial outlook for 2021. Because I'm going to tell people it's not going to be easier from a financial standpoint in 2021. I wish you love, peace, joy, abundance for 2021. Stay
Bye bye.
safe. Please follow your social distancing protocol. Thank you very, very much.
Bye bye, everyone. Thank you.